Hello everybody and welcome back to another photography video. In this one I want to talk about something that's quite important, especially for people that don't really understand photography that well. I'm talking more beginner photographers or people that aspire to be a photographer and people that haven't done it for a long time, or just the people that say, oh, your camera takes nice photos. Because as photographers we know it's not the camera that puts in the work, it's the actual photographer. And I want to talk about the whole process because taking photos is only one part of the whole photography process. I want to talk about all of it, just to make people aware that it isn't just go out, take some photos and you're done. There's a lot more to it than that, starting from the planning and ending up with the end result. So the first thing, obviously planning. A lot of planning goes into my work, believe it or not, although street photography is very much spur of the moment and the decisive moment, if you will, because if you're in one place at one moment and the same place 2 minutes later, you'll get completely different images because the subject in your scene is completely different. The scene might be the same, but the subject walking through it might be better, might be worse, you don't know. And for me, although I shoot scene first, subject second, the subject can make or break the image still. Another thing that is also really important for me when it comes to planning is knowing the location if I've never been there before. So whenever it comes to my photography travel videos that you see on this channel, for example, Amsterdam, Turin, Milan, all of those places, great places for street photography, and I got some great images, but a lot of planning went into those, into being, you know, I'm going to be here at this time, I want to be here at that time, I'll be basing my video around this area. Because I only, for example, Milan being the most recent one, I only shot in a very small part of Milan, but that was where the entire video was based. It was based around the Duomo and just the surrounding streets because I only had a short amount of time in there. So I get the amount of time that I'm going to be there. So a street photography walk could be a day, for example, or a few hours. And then I look at where I'm planning to be with my end destination. I will look on Street View to find my surrounding areas and I'll find where I should be, look for scenes on Street View and say, oh, that'd be a good shot if the light's hitting it at this angle. Then go and explore it firsthand and see for myself if there's a lot of subjects, if there's a lot of traffic. I'll go there, camp out for a bit and wait for the right subject then. There's a lot of planning, and you know, not just for street photography. People that do landscape photography do so much planning. They have so many different weather apps on their phone. They know the times of year that's best to go to places. They'll scout it out first, go around with like a little pocket camera, and then they'll come with all their gear and do it full on a couple of days later, for example. It's a lot of planning goes in photography, and that's a great part of it. Especially for me, I really like the whole, this is where we're going to be, this is going to look cool as an image, because I like planning out my shots before I actually take them, because it gives me better confidence that that image is going to turn out really good. Turin, there was a massive palace that we went to in that video, and we saw some of those rooms before we actually went there, just because we wanted to make sure, one, that it was going to be aesthetic for the pictures, and two, just to make sure that, you know, the light was good and all that in those areas. All of that planning came together to make some really good photos. Once the planning's done, you actually go out and shoot, and this is where I say, you know, the camera does take a nice image, if you will, because gear does matter in a certain aspect. If you're going to take out your phone compared to my Leica, for example, you're going to get different results. And sure, if you're just posting on Instagram or taking photos for yourself, that doesn't matter so much. But I know for a fact that sensors and stuff like that all can make the image look different. The focal length that you shoot with will make a difference. So knowing what to bring on the day and actually going out with the right gear for the location that you are in, that makes a lot of difference. And then you get the actual photos themselves. That's great because you've actually taken the image, you've seen the scene, you've got the subject, and you've captured that moment. What's next? You know, or you're done, you're just going to leave it at that? No, you're not. It's a lot more than just that. You've got the editing process, and I know some people say you shouldn't edit your photos, especially with street photography. You should just leave it and it's the raw essence of that street on that day, but I don't agree with that. I'm very much prone to editing my photos just to give it my own personal touch, And a few of the pictures that I've edited in the past, you've actually seen in a previous video where I went over how I edited some of my pictures. Take this one, for example, that you're seeing on screen. This is not the straight out of camera shot that some people might think it is. It actually took quite a bit of work to get it to how it looks. This was the raw image, and this is how it looks after the edit. Now, I don't actually manipulate the images, I don't remove elements and I don't add elements, but I do change the lighting, I do change where my shadows are and how deep my shadows are and stuff like that, because I have the visual element in mind as I'm taking the shot. And if the shot isn't absolutely perfect or how I want it when I bring it into the edit, I can try and tweak the highlights and I can tweak the shadows to make it how I had in my head as I was taking the image. And then you've got the edit done and dusted, and I usually make 2 or 3 edits. I usually do one in color, one in monochrome, and then I will tweak the color one and make it different. So I might make one color more warm, one more cool, and then I've got the black and white one as well. And I will look at what makes that image better, and I will compare them. I'll have them up side by side, and I would compare what's the better image. And then from there on, I would put it into categories. So I would see whether I can categorize it as good enough for the website, good enough for Instagram, or good enough for my portfolio, because I categorize them differently. I've mentioned this in previous videos. I've got my gallery for the location. I've got my portfolio gallery, which shows my best work. I've got my Instagram, which just shows my point in time, what I'm shooting at that moment. And then anything that I want to print is my work that I think, I personally like. I think it would look good in the house. I think it would look good, on other people's walls, for example. And that's sort of the next step. Once I've got it defined and edited how I want it, and I've got the final image, I will then drag it in to another editing process to get it ready for print. Not a lot of photographers print their work, and I think that's quite a big shame, actually. I think that's a big part of the whole process. Once you've got an image you really like, seeing it in a physical form is just so different than seeing it on a screen or seeing it on Instagram. I print quite a lot of my images when I get a chance, that I think that they look good, whether they look good around this house or whether they look good on other people's walls. I like to print them and see them in physical form, and I've got a few here. This one that I took in Prague, it's done on A4 on a Fujifilm gloss paper, and I really like it. It looks like it's straight out of a movie scene, and yeah, I've got this hung up on the hallway, and I think it looks quite nice. Really nice, glossy, gives it that sort of element of mystery that just really pops with the gloss, and I think the paper quality is good. Makes the images come alive, if you will. And then this one, which I took more recently in Brighton, and you guys saw it, it was the zipline people. And I love this one just for how much negative space there is. They've got the people in monochrome, you've got the zip lines, running parallel, and it's spaced out quite nicely. And then you've got the sky absolutely whited out. Now this is done on really high quality paper, and it sounds like a little wiggle board, if you will. It sounds like a little musical instrument. But yeah, really high quality paper. Isn't so glossy, but is really textured and quite nice. You can't see the texture so much on camera, but if you look at it close up, you've got the minute texture and the details in it. It really brings the image out. And yeah, printing them in physical form and framing them as well, it's just really important part of the process, I feel. I don't only do it for myself, obviously. I sell my prints, or I sell some of them, and that's all on my site. But even if it's just for you, well recommend just printing some of your work and being proud of it into that degree, and hanging your own work up. There's so many pictures of mine around this house that's unreal. I think the other people that live here are probably sick of seeing my work, but I like it, and I like seeing my work everywhere, because it's nice to just reminisce. You walk past it when you're going to get a cup of tea and you see your picture on the wall and you're like, I remember when I took that, and it sort of gets you thinking about those times. And especially if it's like different locations, like this one in Prague, for example, that one, if, it gets me thinking of the whole trip to Prague that I had last year. And it gets me thinking of the other pictures that I took, like the guy walking across the crosswalk, which is the front cover of my zine, or a few other pictures that I really, really like from that trip. It gets me thinking of that whole thing. and it keeps me reminiscing, and it makes me think, wow, I can go out and take another one of those pictures that are good at that. And yeah, it's really, really, a nice part of the process. And I think that's where my process ends. I know other people, they push it further and they get it blown up massive and they commercialize their pictures. I'm not at that stage. I don't think I want to be at that stage where I'm selling my pictures and licensing my images, but that's certainly part of the process. It's certainly not just take a picture and you're done. But I think it's important to understand this whole process isn't just you go out on a random day, take a photo, and you're done. You've got to really make the image. And that's why you see a lot of street photographers, I'm not really precious about it, but a lot of street photographers and photographers in general don't say, I'm going to take some photos. They say, I'm going to make some photos. Because it isn't just taking a photo, it is making that image and making it as a whole process. And that's the important thing. With street photography, it is all about the decisive moment. It is all about capturing the everyday, capturing the complete unclear, you don't know what's going to happen on the day. But that's part of the fun, that's part of the enjoyment. But you've still got to plan for it in certain ways. You've still got to plan for the weather. You've still got to pack accordingly with your focal lengths and your lenses that you're taking and all that sort of stuff. But capturing the moment and then seeing the moment come alive on a bit of paper in front of you is way more important than just taking the picture and uploading it to Instagram. That's for sure. I hope you guys agree. And if you do, let me know your process down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to buy a print, like those two and a couple more that I've got selected, there's a link to my store down in the description. It's all on really high quality paper that I can't pronounce the name of, but it'll say all the information on the store. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.